For decades, there was a legal cheat code hidden inside the British tax system. It was not a scam. It was not a scheme whispered about in the back rooms of the city. It was completely legal, and it sat inside almost every private pension in the country. That cheat code was the SIPP, the self-invested personal pension. For years, the SIPP was the ultimate inheritance shield. It was the one place in Britain where you could grow your wealth, watch it compound, and then pass the entire pot to your children without HMRC taking its usual 40% cut. Property was taxed, savings were taxed, investments were taxed, but the pension sat behind glass, untouchable, protected. It was the closest thing this country ever had to a legal way to beat inheritance tax. But on the 6th of April, 2027, that shield is being shattered forever. And here is what almost nobody is telling you. We are not living after the change. We are living inside the grace period. From the moment this legislation was confirmed, the clock started ticking. And right now, you have roughly 12 months, one final window, to re-architect your family's future before the government quietly moves the rungs of the ladder out of your reach. After that date, the rules of the game are rewritten, and the pension you spent 30 years building becomes something the taxman is finally allowed to touch. Let us be precise about what is happening, because the detail matters. This was first announced in the autumn budget of 2024, and it has now been written into law. From the 6th of April, 2027, most unused pension funds and death benefits will be counted as part of your estate for inheritance tax purposes. That single sentence undoes a generation of careful financial planning. Think of it like this. For 30 years, your pension sat underneath a protective glass dome. Every year, the tax rain of HMRC fell from the sky. It hit the surface of that dome, and it simply washed away, running off the edges and into the gutter, leaving the wealth inside dry. Your children's inheritance stayed safe and sheltered, no matter how hard it poured. In 2027, the government is lifting the dome, the glass is coming off, and for the first time, your family's wealth will be left standing out in the open, exposed to a 40% downpour, with no cover, no shelter, and nowhere to hide. To put a real figure on it, imagine a £1 million SIPP that you intended to pass to your child. Under the old rules, it passed cleanly. Under the new rules, that same pot could be hit with a £400,000 inheritance tax bill. £400,000 gone, before your child ever sees a single penny of it. But it gets worse, and this is the part that catches families completely off guard. It is what advisors are quietly calling the double tax. If you pass away after the age of 75, two taxes stack on top of each other. First, your estate pays inheritance tax on the pension. Then, when your children actually withdraw the money, they pay income tax on those same withdrawals as well, at their own marginal rate, tax on top of tax. For a higher earner inheriting the pot, the worst-case maths is brutal. Picture £100 sitting in that pension. 40% is taken in inheritance tax, leaving £60. Then income tax takes its share of what remains. By the time the money reaches your child's bank account, that £100 gift can shrink to as little as £33. You saved it, you protected it, and 2/3 of it can vanish at the finish line, and the trap is tightening from a second direction at the same time. The Nil Rate Band, the amount you can pass on before inheritance tax even begins, is frozen at £325,000. It has been frozen for more than 15 years, and it is now locked in place all the way until April 2031. House prices rise, investments grow, your estate swells year after year, but that threshold does not move an inch. Economists call this fiscal drag, but you can call it what it really is: a stealth tax that pulls more and more ordinary families into the net every single year, without a single headline rate ever going up. Now, there is one piece of shelter left, and you need to understand exactly where it ends. If you leave your pension to a legal spouse or civil partner, it still passes completely tax-free. That much is protected. But here is the sting in the tail. That exemption only delays the bill. It does not cancel it. When the second partner passes away, and the wealth finally moves down to the children, the full weight of inheritance tax lands all at once. The tax was never avoided. It was simply waiting. For most families, the realization does not arrive with a dramatic letter or a knock at the door. It arrives on any quiet morning, perhaps at the start of a new tax year, when you sit down with a cup of tea and finally do the sums. And you feel something shift in your stomach as you understand what has happened. The private legacy you built for your family, quietly and carefully, over decades, has been re-categorised overnight as public revenue. It was yours. Now the state has a claim on it. So how do you fight back? To understand the strategy, you need a completely new way of seeing your pension. Most people picture their SIPP as a wood, a forest of trees. They are patiently growing, so that one day their children can inherit the whole thing. But the government has now made a decision, from 2027, that standing wood, the unprocessed timber of an unused pension, is treated as a taxable luxury. Leave it standing, and the taxman takes his cut of the entire forest. The families who win are the ones who stop hoarding timber and start harvesting fruit. Your job, over the next 12 months, is to turn that raw wood into fruit, into tax-free gifts, and into money moved into the ISA of the people you love, while the harvest tax is still optional, because in 2027, it stops being optional. There are 3 moves that the well-advised are making right now. This is the manual override. Strategy 1, the gifting siphon. This is about slowly and deliberately moving money out of the taxable SIPP and into the tax-free ISA of your children today, while you are alive and in control. Every pound you shift, using your annual gifting allowances, is a pound pulled out of the 40% downpour and placed permanently under cover. You are draining the taxable pot before the government can lock the lid. Strategy 2, the charitable bypass. Here is a rule most people have never heard of. If you leave at least 10% of your estate to charity, the inheritance tax rate on the rest of your estate drops from 40% down to 36%. Used deliberately, this lets you direct money to a cause you actually believe in, rather than handing the full share to HMRC, and it lowers the overall tax bill in the process. It is one of the few levers left that actually rewards generosity. Strategy 3, the spend down shift. This is the one that breaks people's brains, because it inverts everything they were ever taught. For years, the standard advice was simple: spend your other savings first and protect the pension until last, because the pension was the sheltered pot. That logic is now upside down. From 2027, the pension is the exposed pot. So the new thinking is to spend your pension down first, drawing an income through drawdown, using your lump sum allowance, the LSA, to take your tax-efficient cash, while preserving other assets and your home equity for the estate. The entire math of wealth has been inverted, and the families who do not notice will pay for the mistake. And here is the cruel twist in all of this. This change was sold as a tax on the very wealthy. In reality, the people it hits hardest are not the super rich, who have armies of advisors and complex trusts. It is the squeezed middle, the disciplined, ordinary families, particularly across the home counties, who did everything right. They bought a modest home decades ago that has quietly ballooned in value. They saved diligently into a pension they never splurged. And precisely because they were sensible, their combined estate now sails straight over that frozen threshold. This is, in the truest sense, a success tax, a penalty aimed squarely at the people who followed the rules and saved for the future they were told to build. If you want to check the numbers for your own situation, sites like Money Saving Expert have run the maths, and it is well worth an honest look. So let us bring this home. For an entire generation, building wealth in Britain was about one thing above all else: growth. Grow the pot, grow the pension. Grow the number on the statement. But the rules have changed. From 2027, wealth in this country is no longer just about growth. It is about containment. It is about protecting what you have built from being pruned away at the very last moment. You still have a window. You have roughly 12 months before the glass dome is lifted and the downpour begins. What you do in that window, the gifts you make, the pots you drain, the assets you rearrange, will decide whether your life's work reaches your family or reaches the treasury. True freedom, in the end, is not just a big number on a pension statement. It is a family legacy that HMRC cannot prune at the finish line. The grace period is open. The clock is running. Do this before it becomes illegal. If you learned something, hit like and subscribe. See you in the next one.